Orc, the bardic paladin, who sings and plays again. He tells the tales of glory and weaves a magic story. He'll join you at your table and ask you to share a fable. Heroes of humble origin, villains who must be fought again. No matter their skill or prowess, the people in life are countless. So we pray you heed our request. Enjoy this tale of sidekicks and side quests.
Episode 111, Proserpina, the Archfey. Welcome to Sidekicks and Side Quests, the Dungeons & Dragons podcast that helps to put humans back into humanity and breathe life into your campaign NPCs with backstory and bravado. That's right, we're building a world, one character at a time. I am your host, Kurt Krenwelge, the Bardic Paladin, and I'll be joining Nolan Paige's table in the Levitating Platter. Hello, and welcome to another episode of Sidekicks and Side Quests, the best unofficial Dungeons & Dragons podcast, in my humbly biased opinion. I've got an awesome returning guest for you this week, but before we get to our guest, I got to do it, the ad read from our first sponsor, Plus One EXP. You had an opportunity to hear Tony Vicinda himself on a recent episode talk about his entire brand and platform. He's got all the beard balms named after all of the basic stats from Dungeons & Dragons, and he's also expanding into soaps and lip balms and all these other sorts of things to help enhance your abilities, whether it be strength, dexterity, charisma, or more. Beards and Beyond is the indie RPG that helped to launch this entire brand, but you should know that Tony's worked on other really cool games, including Repugnant, iToaster, Down We Go Through the Void, Vamp, Nugula, and Brandstanding, just to name a few. And, whether you go to Plus One EXP's website or you go to their itch page or whatever, and you buy something from them, all that money also goes into what's called the Plus One Forward program, which seeks to support additional indie tabletop content creators to continue making awesome stuff. So I would highly encourage you, please follow Tony and Plus One EXP on all of the socials, Twitter or X, Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, and Discord in order to keep up with all the various projects that are being worked on, as well as upcoming interviews, one-shots, and actual plays of some of these other amazing indie TTRPGs. And if you don't mind, when you go to the website plusoneexp.com, which I'm sure you all do every single time I mention it, and you're looking for a code to put in the box, be sure to type in the code Randolph at checkout in order to get some savings on your purchase at no extra cost to you. And it also helps to support this show. So again, that code is Randolph on the website, plusoneexp.com. Well, it has been a while since we have spoken, but for those not in the know, would you care to reintroduce yourself? Tell us who it is that you are and what is it that you do?
My name's Nolan Page. I work for a water company down here in San Antonio. Yeah, I work at a water treatment plant.
That's awesome. Yeah, I remember you educating me that on the first go around. Certainly, with the population of Texas growing, making sure that we have good water is also a very good thing.
Yep.
It's been a couple of years since we've officially talked as far as the podcast is concerned.
Yeah.
Keen viewers may remember that you were one of my first episodes that I collected in that span of time when everyone was stuck indoors. And I was like, well, I guess I'll just keep interviewing people. So you were very gracious to be one of my first guests. And I certainly appreciate that.
Oh, yeah. It was fun. And I'm glad to be back.
So have you had an opportunity to play any Dungeons & Dragons or other TTRPGs in the meantime?
Yes. I've been in a couple campaigns over the last couple years. I still haven't been a dungeon master myself. I just haven't quite had the time to prepare. But I have been in a few games.
Oh, that's awesome. Any chance you've played that Warhammer 40K TTRPG that I hear is out?
No, I haven't. I've heard it's good, but I haven't had a chance.
I know there's only so many hours in a day in order to play all the games that we want to play, right?
Right.
Have you come across any new or interesting NPCs or sidekicks in whatever media you've consumed since the last time we spoke.
Not in particular. I was kind of brainstorming the other day.
Mm-hmm.
Might be, well, I mean, it's definitely more in like BBEG territory.
Oh, sure.
Working in water, you hear all the time, a lot of people think that fluoride is bad and it's like
Mm-hmm.
used for like mind control and stuff. And I'm
Uh-huh.
like, obviously it's not. But in a D&D setting or whatever, what if it was?
Mm.
That could make a really neat plot device of some sort.
Yeah, the fluoride, I suppose, is brought up a lot in these conspiracy circles in the real world, but
Yeah.
certainly would be an interesting element to include in a TTRPG campaign.
Yeah.
And then, have you come across any new or interesting side quests in any various games in the interim?
A couple months ago, we did a one shot, and we didn't really know what was going on. He was kind of playing it close to the chest.
Okay.
When we get there, we've got our characters all prepped, and they're all like kitted out for battle or whatever.
Hmm.
Well, we get there, and turns out our characters are in an Iron Chef competition.
Oh.
So we're sitting there, we're like teamed up helping out an NPC, and on the other team, the character was basically his version of Loki, kind of a trickster god.
Okay.
So lots of shenanigans. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, I was going to say, yeah, you don't get that many opportunities to do, I guess, a series of skill challenge in a cooking competition.
Yeah. I was sitting there with my poisoner feet, and I'm like, uh-oh, this is not good for cooking.
Not unless you're trying to take out the competition without them knowing.
Right?
And then have you come across any new passions or hobbies in the couple years since we spoke officially on the podcast?
Well, I've been trying to teach myself clarinet and trombone,
Oh,
and it's absolutely horrible on both ends, but it's a lot of fun.
I was going to say, remind me again in school, what was your instrument that you played?
My main instrument was bass guitar, playing bass in jazz band, but also I played tuba, and I wasn't a great student, but I played, had
Yeah, no,
fun.
I remember your solid chops on the bass and being in the tuba ensemble and such. Yeah, no, that's cool. Clarinet and trombone. Yeah, you're just you're going to become like Dr. Steve Trinkle and you're going to become a savant of all these instruments before you know
Yeah.
it.
Well, I'm working on it.
Awesome. I just feel like we went through the questions so fast, so I just wanted to, before we moved on to the next section, just, give you an opportunity to be like, how has life been for you these past few years? Whatever you feel like sharing.
Uh, Things been going good. The last time we talked, I was on night shift, and I'd been on night shift for all total, it was 4.5 years.
Mhm.
And, that's a little rough.
Sure.
I've been on day shift for a year, and
Okay.
it's been a pretty good year.
Yeah, I mean, you get to function in like normal society and stuff like that and get to see your friends and family during the normal hours that you would.
Yeah, yeah. Be awake during the day like a normal person.
Yeah. Well, that's cool. I'm glad to hear that everything's been going well and your family's been great since the pandemic lockdowns and all that. And
Hmm.
animals are doing well. I know I've picked up some new animals in my life. So it's just good to hear that the Paige household triumphs.
Yeah, yeah. Talking about animals, we got a new kitten in December,
Oh.
and she was like, they said she was 3 months old, but I don't think she was. She was a
Mm.
little younger than that. So she's doing pretty good, getting along well with our 140-pound Newfie mix, and
Mm.
everybody's doing good.
We have a dog named Bishop now, and he is a King Charles Cavalier Spaniel.
Oh
So he
man,
just turned a year old.
oh man. I used to have a Cavalier King Charles. His name was Charlie.
That was an option, but we decided Bishop. We like that name. We'll call him Bishop.
Yeah, yeah. That's a good, excellent name.
Yep.
And Charlie passed away. I think it was about a year and a half ago.
Mm.
He was such a great dog, and I'm sure Bishop is just the sweetest, because they're just such good boys.
Yeah, he's a good lap dog, but he can be a stinker at times, chewing on toys that don't belong to him.
Oh yeah, oh yeah.
All right. Well, we had a wonderful time catching up, going down memory lane a little bit, and that I think it's time we head into the NPC creation.
Sounds good.
All right. Yeah. And NPC creation is brought to you by you, podcast audience, and our patrons for Patreon. So now is the time of the show where we give a shout out to our comfortable patrons and above with a loud hurrah. So to you, Katie Downey, aka Goblin Katie, Anson Jablinski, and my parents, we say cheers. All of these fine patrons are, wealthy level, but most recently, our own queen of the Patreon, Katie Downey, aka Goblin Katie, has just upgraded her membership to the aristocratic tier. So we definitely say a big huzzah for that. So that means that all of these awesome people get to submit an element of chance to our random tables, which we are going to use here right now. So if you want to learn more details and join our Patreon, you can either go to the show notes below, you can go to my podcast website, or just go directly to patreon.com/sidekicks and sidequests to find out more about our accommodations, help us expand our operations at the Levitating Platter in this demi-plane and worlds beyond. So as you will recall, I know last time you came in with like part of an idea formed and then we rolled some dice, but this time you just want to go full random. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct.
Awesome. Awesome. That is the way we like to do things on this podcast. So if you have your dice at the ready, whether physical or virtual, we begin our creation process with rolling a d20 to figure out the name of our character.
All right. On a d20, I rolled a 14.
14. All right. Your answer was suggested by previous guest, Kevin No. Proserpina. So that's spelled Proserpina. Proserpina. Proserpina? Proserpina. I know that this name is from mythology, I believe. Proserpina is what Google says.
Proserpina. Cool.
Proserpina. Okay, we'll go with that.
Cool.
The next question we have to ask ourselves is, what is the ancestry of our character? And we determine this with a D100 or a 2D10 effect.
All right. That is a 90.
90 as I scroll down the list. Oh, well, very fitting with the mythology theme because we got the answer of Archfey. So,
Cool.
Proserpina is some kind of Archfey. Comes from the Feywild, very powerful figure indeed. All right. And now we need to determine what is the job or role in society that this Archfey Proserpina has. You can determine this with a singular D10 roll.
Okay. That is a 5.
5. Okay. Your answer provided by previous guest, Lauren Walsh, Market Barker. So this particular Archfey seems to be masquerading around as some kind of Market Barker. Or maybe as a Market Barker in the Feywild, who knows? And
Yeah.
then the final piece of the puzzle for now with the dice rolling, we need to determine the age range of the character, and we do this with a D8.
8. All right. Oh, okay. A 2.
A 2, okay. Well, a 2 would make a teenager. So are you okay with a teenage Archfey named Proserpina that's a Market Barker?
Yeah, that sounds pretty good. I can picture that.
You can picture that, or maybe this is a disguise, possibly, is adopting the guise of a teenager that's being a Market Barker or something like that, maybe.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Okay.
Yeah.
Since we're getting into this question or alluding to it, how would you describe the physical appearance of Proserpina, the Market Barker teenager?
I'm picturing, like in the old shows, the kids that stand there with the papers.
Mm-hmm. Extra, extra, read all about it.
Yeah, exactly. Especially if we're going with the skies, yeah, the little kid standing there next to a stack of papers going, extra, extra.
So does this market have kind of papers that it delivers? Is it like, like some of these grocery stores that give you like the coupon book or something at the door to encourage you to spend your money on certain goods or services or something like that?
Yeah, that sounds good.
Just standing at the front being like, hey, sale on tomatoes. Get them
Yeah.
right here.
Yeah, like, hey, 13 eggs today instead of 12,
Ooh, okay. All right. And so how do you imagine this teenager form is appearing? Proserpina,
Proserpina.
maybe that's like a feminine name. So is that like a feminine appearance you're thinking maybe? Or is it different? I don't know.
I was picturing, a female, pointy ears, but in the kind of that old extra, extra garb, like with like what black overalls, like, or maybe suspenders.
Oh, okay. So like looking like a newsie.
Yeah, that's the word, newsy. Well, maybe more like a brightly colored shirt
Okay.
instead of the black and white.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so this is the teenage guys, and so we're assuming some sort of like elven form then, I suppose.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, since it's kind of disguised, maybe some pointy ears, but not a whole lot of much to draw attention to appearance, I guess.
Okay, so just trying to blend in and look the part.
Yeah.
So we're imagining that Proserpina is existing in the mundane world instead of like the natural Feywild.
Maybe kind of like an Eberron setting or like a
Oh, like a desert climate?
well, like what am I trying to think? Not like the mundane world, but kind of they're going through like an industrial revolution type of thing. They got like steampunkery going on.
So it may be like the material plane, but it's not just like generic medieval fantasy land. This is like a steampunk area that's undergoing some kind of magical industrial revolution or something like that.
Yeah, yeah, that's what I'm seeing.
Okay. And certainly we can explore it more in some of the other questions as well, but I'm just curious if you've already got ideas forming as to why this particular Archfey is in this place and adopting this particular disguise. Does the Archfey have some sort of interest in this steampunk industrial magical society or something like that?
Maybe just kind of a what am I trying to say? Kind of like a spy.
Oh, okay. So acting as a spy, and rather than sending some underling, they just themselves are there in all their archfey power and glory.
Kind of what I was picturing. Yeah.
Okay,
Archfey. If they get into trouble, they can get out.
sure. Yeah, yeah. Rather than sending one of their underlings who could easily get captured and studied or experimented on or something.
Yeah.
And is this their true Archfey name? I personally am having a stumbling block saying it. Is that the Archfey's real name, or is that like the disguise name of the teenager? And so, oh, it sounds like very elven, and so that's why it's hard to say, or something like that.
I hadn't really thought of it, so I was kind of thinking maybe Persephone is their real name,
Okay.
and maybe in the world she's spying on, maybe Percy.
Ooh, Percy. Okay, interesting. So she goes by Percy and her market Barker form, but then Proserpina is the Archfey's real name.
Yeah, I don't know. It seems like decent
Okay.
cover.
Sure. Yeah. No, I dig it. I just wanted to understand. So, and maybe also get an idea of like an easier name to say. So,
Yeah.
Percy, Proserpina, what three adjectives best describe her?
Well, I mean, definitely observant,
Okay.
inquisitive, I suppose,
Okay.
and trying to think like friendly, but like too friendly, like
Hmm.
phony.
Phony? Interesting. And so by being overly friendly as a market barker, you think that throws people off the trail as to like, oh, Percy couldn't be something more than she appears. She's just like a market barker. She's trying to get you to buy stuff in the market.
Yeah,
She's
yeah,
not anything more than that. She's just super annoying teenager kind of a thing.
exactly. A little bit
Mm.
annoying, so people are like, ugh.
It's like, no, I don't want your coupons. Leave me alone.
Yeah.
No, I don't want to join your rewards membership program.
No, you can't have my phone number.
I'll get a ding on my credit. I don't need to give you my social security number.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. I'm starting to like Percy, Proserpina. And then let's see the next question we have here. And we get to go back to some dice rolling. What is going to be a valuable item, a piece of lore, a secret, or an ideal or concept that Percy slash Proserpina would ascribe to? This is the combo D4, D6 roll.
Okay. All right. A D4 and D6. All right. On the D4, I got a 1, and on the D6, I got a 3.
Okay. Well, your answer was provided by previous guest Kevin Chenard. Percy, Proserpina, has an ivory statuette of an owl that once per day animates and can be used to deliver a long distance message.
Awesome.
So, does this have to be involved with the spy network that Percy Proserpina is running?
That'd be pretty handy to, get intel back to home.
Is this owl able to travel back to the Feywild, or are there other agents or spies that Percy Proserpina is in control of in this town, in this area, or a neighboring community within this particular setting?
I'm kind of picturing that it can travel to like maybe like a nearby hideout or maybe like a village
Okay.
and go and relay info there, and then they can do what they do with the info.
Okay.
Whatever their ends are.
Okay. Yeah. So maybe just as we're discovering this item and kind of like the idea behind this character, this Archfey herself that's willing to put herself in harm's way to figure out all this intel. Do you have some sort of idea as to why the Fae are spying on this particular civilization, for lack of a better term? Does it have to do with them making intrusions into the Feywild? Are they stealing resources from the Feywild? Is it like a Fern Gully situation?
That's kind of what I was thinking. Like, since it's kind of an industrial revolution era going on,
Mhm.
they're just kind of making sure, trying to steer them away from like dark magic
Oh.
stuff that they shouldn't get into.
So there's a natural environment that this civilization is trying to make usage of, and them being natural protectors, say, of like the forest or the swamps or what have you, that's nearby this civilization that's rich in resources. The Archfey and their network are just trying to steer them in a direction that's going to help them avoid the more dangerous elements of that environment,
Yeah, yeah,
or discovering natural portals to the Feywild or the Shadowfell or whatever else.
yeah. We don't want none of that either.
Sure, sure. Okay. So an archfey that does seem to have noble intentions, it seems, not one of these greedy, self-interested sort of archfays that wants to like sow chaos or anything like that. This is like a protector sort of archfey, maybe like some sort of maybe lawful neutral or lawful good sort of a character, you think?
Yeah, I feel like her loyalty would be to the Feywilds. Like,
Hmm.
goal one is protect the Feywilds, and then
Hmm.
as a secondary, like, hey, let's try to keep these folks from destroying themselves.
Now that we've discovered all these elements, what is going to be a particular quest that Percy, Proserpina, is willing to recruit or hire player characters to go and do on her behalf? If you want to roll for this randomly, this can be the final dice, which is a d12, or if you're inspired, you can just kind of generate your own side quest.
You know what? Let's roll.
Sure, go for it.
8.
8. Ooh, okay. Your answer provided by previous guest, Alyssa Vischer. Cleanse a contaminated pool, which seems to go great with our industrial revolution sort of a theme. So, can we elaborate more on the nature of this contaminated pool?
Yeah. Let's see. Okay. I'm thinking there was a natural spring, and as the town built up,
Hmm.
they took that spring and turned it into like a fountain.
Oh, okay.
Something like that.
We're like right in your wheelhouse of like expertise now. Like the stars could not have aligned better for this.
Yeah.
Okay, so a natural spring, a natural pool that as the civilization grew encompassed it, and then they decided, let's turn it into a fountain.
Yeah.
Okay. And then it's become contaminated over time because of like, I'm just trying to think of the things people have done in burgeoning industrial societies. Are they using it to like bathe in? Are they washing their clothes in it? Are they throwing their waste in it? Or are the industrial companies dumping toxic waste into the pool, and the people like this fountain and they can't stop, the big, powerful mage guild from dumping their magic toxic barrels into the fountain or something?
Or maybe they're dumping fluoride in.
Oh no, the fluoride is back. It's gonna make all our teeth clean and mind control us.
Yep, exactly. But yeah, I think definitely some sort of chemical waste is making its way into there and making the fountain nasty, but also the spring, making the spring
Mm.
nasty.
Okay. Obviously, with your expertise in this field, so it's already a natural occurring spring that's been converted into a fountain for the purposes of the town. But even beneath a spring, are there still like branches of the spring that go out and feed into like other natural water sources like springs and creeks and rivers and all this stuff? And obviously, water's got to come from somewhere else in order to feed into the spring, kind of a
Oh yeah,
situation.
yeah, absolutely. And yeah, I mean, well, we don't got to get too realistic, but it could be like an aquifer, and You know, like the spring is the bottom part of an aquifer, and the uphill, like a long ways, maybe that's where the contamination's coming
That's
from.
where the source of the contamination is, because they think, oh, we dump it up here, it's not going to be a problem, but it's trickled its way down into this fountain that the public uses. And now I'm just imagining, like, what was it? There was an episode of The Simpsons where the fish start eating each other and they have different colored eyes as they go on, or
Yeah,
different numbers of eyes as they go on. So
yeah. Blinky.
people in the town are like drinking this water, they're washing their clothes, they're bathing, they're doing whatever they need to do, but slowly you see someone has like an extra thumb growing on their hand, or
Yeah,
someone's got the burgeoning beginning of a third eye,
yeah,
or an extra set of gills growing on their neck, and they're just like, we don't understand what's going on. And
yeah,
the local government's like, oh, don't worry about it, it's just it's all part of the revolution of the industry that we're doing. Like, don't you see that this is all just part of the process or whatever?
yeah,
Okay, so the players are tasked. They do the mission of cleaning it up, but whatever a dungeon master decide that means it entails. And they return to Proserpina, and they report that, hey, the contaminated pool is now clean. What's going to be the reward?
Well, Percy was handing out coupon books, or flyers or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it takes the players to realize that when they tear a coupon out, another one's magically there, and they never run out of coupons.
Ooh, an unlimited coupon book for this town.
Yeah, it'd be subtle but extremely useful.
Yeah, yeah. Permanent discounts on healing potions and grappling hooks and whatever supplies you need from this market.
Yeah,
And is that about the extent of the reward? Does Percy let slip that maybe perhaps they're a little more powerful than they let on? Maybe? Does this provide like future missions or something? A reoccurring NPC, if you will?
yeah, yeah,
And then we have to consider the opposite. What's going to be the consequence of failure or refusing the call to the adventure? How is Proserpina going to react to that? What if the players side with the industrial mage complex and they're like, we don't care about the environment and the water. In fact, we're going to do even more polluting.
Oh man, I don't know.
Keeping in mind that this is an Archfey in disguise, is this particular Archfey character going to unleash some sort of curses or disadvantages or penalties towards the players in some fashion or form?
I think it would be maybe a disadvantage when bartering.
Okay, just like permanent, well, until it's resolved somehow, but a permanent disadvantage whenever you're trying to make bargaining or economic diplomacy persuasion checks, kind of a thing.
Yeah,
Interesting. It's definitely an inconvenience, but not something that's debilitating towards the players. Do you
yeah,
think that
yeah.
would be the extent of it or anything more serious? Do they get on some sort of watch list or something as far as the Archfey is concerned?
I think she would keep it pretty innocuous to maintain her concealment, maintain her cover.
Right, but her network at least would be aware of like these player characters that she asked them to do something and they said no and refused her. And so she's like, okay, we got to keep tabs on these people to know what they're doing. Is there a difference if it comes to like failing? Like they actually go out there to try and stop it, but for whatever reason, like the archmage is or whatever overwhelm them and they're not able to stop the contamination or something. Is there going to be like a different reaction to that?
I don't know. I feel like if they tried, she would at least throw them a bone, or at the very least not punish them.
Okay.
If they really gave it an honest try.
hmm But refusal or like not even really attempting to do a good job, she's going to put that perma disadvantage on the economic persuasion checks until you either come back to her to like apologize and make up for it, or that, I don't know, they get some sort of like wish spell or something that would do away with it, but then they never learn the truth as to why that disadvantage was there in the first place.
Yeah, yeah. Again, nothing crazy because she wants to also conceal or maintain her cover.
What are the goals and motivations of Percy Proserpina as a character?
Primary goal: protect the Feywilds and nature.
How do these goals affect Proserpina's personality?
I feel like she'd be very persuasive.
Hmm. Okay. With the lawful and just her power level as an archfey, just is able to like get at the heart of the matter with people and things.
Yeah, and really good at knowing what to say to get what she wants.
How does Proserpina normally interact with other people? Is she the same across the board, or is she pretty nuanced depending on who she's talking to?
I feel like she would be nuanced, like have a good feel for reading people and seeing how to talk to that person, you know?
Is there a difference in like her actual Archfey mode that she addresses like other Fey creatures who are, subservient to her? Or is she like the same? She knows exactly what she needs to say to this servitor of hers in order to get them to do their best job with whatever she needs done.
She wouldn't address them differently. She just, each individual basis, she knows what to say to them.
Okay. She's a good Archfey in that regard. She's not like draconian or mean or anything like that. She knows exactly what she needs to say in order to get the person to do what they need to do.
Yeah, you kill more flies with honey than vinegar.
Is there a particular accent or language that Proserpina uses? Are there any idiosyncrasies in how she acts or speaks? Is there an accent or something that she adopts while she's Percy? And is it different than how she would normally talk if she was in her natural Archfey form?
Hmm.
And I don't know if we address that as well. Do you envision that her Archfey form looks any different than how she, obviously appears in disguise?
I think her disguise form is
Mhm.
basically just what she looked like when she was young,
Oh, okay.
you know,
Interesting.
and then maybe when she's not in her disguise, maybe she's kind of, more along the lines of like Galadriel,
Mm,
you know,
okay. And then is there like a idiosyncrasy in how she acts or speaks? Is there a particular accent that she deploys? We had this idea of like a Newsies Market Barker of like, teenager extra extra kind of a thing. Is that how
yeah.
is that how she talks when she's an archfey, or is that only as part
I,
of her disguise?
I think that's only part of her disguise.
Okay.
Kind of nasally, and then when she's not disguised, just more, I don't know, refined, I guess,
Refined. Okay. Okay.
more noble. I don't know.
All right. And then what impact has she made on the world? How has she shaped the local area? I know she's having to combat this whole burgeoning society that's growing, but how successful to this point has she been with at least steering them subtly or not so subtly?
I feel like to this point she's been pretty successful.
Okay.
The spring, the fountain, that was kind of like, oh, that's a new problem, but most of the older problems she's managed pretty well.
Yeah, and probably because she's, been there herself, she's had the most effect rather than just kind of taking the more passive role. In the command center telling everyone else what to do, she's like, no, 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 I'm going to go there and do it myself, kind of a thing.
Yeah, she's
Okay.
not a delegator. She gets her hands dirty.
Okay. And then does Proserpina have any current problems that prevent her from being an even bigger player on the stage? Is it the fact that she's having to keep this disguise? She can't just burst out in her true form and then, tell all these mages or industrial people what for and what they're doing is wrong or misguided?
Hmm. I don't know.
Okay. I mean, it's okay to not know. Some things, maybe can be open ended and left to mystery. So, yeah, I mean, it is possible to think, maybe this immediate problem that she's asking the player characters to take care of, maybe this is the biggest problem she's trying to deal with right now. Or maybe they're just a multitude of other problems that she can more easily handle on her own. But this one would involve, oh, you have to travel outside of town. It's going to take a while to get there. And, this is a real big hassle for me to try and take on while I'm also trying to juggle like 5 other things that are going
Yeah,
on that I can easily address or something.
yeah. Like she's like, I could do these 5 things, or I could do that one thing and ignore these 5 things. So
Mm,
y'all go do the one thing.
I see. Okay. Well, I think we've learned a lot about Proserpina/Percy that I think it's time we head into a random encounter.
All right.
All right. And of course, this segment of the show does not have a sponsorship, but if you would like to change that, feel free to send me an email at sidekicksandsidequests.com. I'm happy to read your proposals and have you be a permanent sponsor of this episode and this particular segment that will live in perpetuity, don't you know? So I hope to hear from some rich noblewoman or eccentric lord soon. All right. As you remember, this is the random encounter section where we get to do a little role play, a little vignette with the character. So I think you've done a great job of giving life to Proserpina, that I'm curious how I should approach the scene. Am I going to be one of my podcast characters that's going to come and get the side quest?
Yeah, that'd probably be. I could probably handle that a little bit better.
Okay. So then we've got a cast of characters to choose from. We have Duncan, the recklessly brave adventurer for hire, happy go lucky, that kind of guy. We've got Sonia, the warrior woman who started off as a barbarian, multiclassed into a paladin who serves to redeem the undead. We have
Nice.
Korak, the lawful evil arcane trickster roguish dwarf. We have Chrisley, the herbalist botanist wood elf druid who multiclassed into a cleric that serves living memory. We have Orion, who is the astral elf illusionist wizard. And then we have Agape, who is the tiefling wild magic, Feywild inspired sorcerer.
I think Percy would try to butter up the druid
Oh, you think that Chrisley would be the better character to meet?
from Percy's perspective, but then, like say the other one would probably be happy to meet an Archfey.
Oh, true. Yeah. Well, let's see. Do you want to flip a coin or roll a dice? If it's evens, we'll do Chrisley. And if it's odds, we'll do Agape.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Okay.
One. So odd.
Odds would be Agape. Okay. So where we last left our hero Agape, she had returned to the mortal realm and she had ended up inside of a graveyard where she met the young Sunny Pawnborn and helped this Gif gravedigger across town in order to get some medicine to bring it back to his pa who was sick. And so Sunny was very appreciative, and so was Sunny's mom. And after that adventure, we'll say maybe it's even this same town because this graveyard is just kind of sequestered into one part of the town. And as Agape is exploring further, she's beginning to see more of the industrial complex starting to take over. Perhaps she was an old town and now she's starting to head into the newer, more industrialized part. So she's walking around and she can see this market coming up into view, and she's flowing with the crowds as they're going. And so as she's starting to approach this market and where she could conceivably see Percy, what is Agape seeing?
So yeah, the entrance of the market, just a little newsy little girl with the kind of pointed ears, hollering, hey, coupons, come get your coupons.
And Agape is kind of like, again, she's a fish out of water in this place, but she kind of gets bumped out of line. And so she ends up right in front of Percy, who can naturally detect as an archfey that this lilac purple colored tiefling, who's just wearing very simple leathers and other sorcerer type garb, is imbued with a wild magic, and that it is Feywild linked. So it's almost kind of like a natural sort of attraction, between the two, not like in a romantic way or anything like that, but just naturally. It's like in Into the Spider-Verse when the one Peter Parker recognizes Miles Morales as another Spider-Man. So it's kind of like that, you get the Spider-Man wiggle spider sense lines, and then they just kind of like connect. And so she can't place immediately like why she's vibing with this teenager in front of her, but Agape will just stop and be like, oh, sorry. I just got pushed by the crowd a little bit, but hello, nice to make your acquaintance. And she'll hold out her hand and she'll say, my name's Agape. Nice to meet you.
Well, hi, I'm Percy.
Percy.
Nice to meet you too.
Wow. And then you see that she kind of perks up and smiles, like she's feeling like, she's made like a new friend, and she's just kind of like looking around and she's like, wow, this is new and different. I don't think I've ever seen anything like this before. What's this? You have coupons? What are these?
Oh yeah, coupons. You can use them throughout the market.
May I see one?
Oh yes, please take it. I got a whole stack.
So what kind of coupons are in this book?
Not like mind-blowing coupons. It's like buy 9 healing potions, get a 10th one free.
They're marketed in such a way that it's going to encourage you to have to spend a lot of money in order to get any benefit from these.
Basically, yes. Yeah.
Oh, okay. So she's kind of like, oh, wow. Like I guess they're really proud of what they're selling here. Oh man, I don't even know if I have this much.
Oh, sure you do. Sure you do.
She kind of looks quizzically at Percy, but she'll smile and she says, thanks. Well, I mean, I guess I've I've been hopping between the planes a little bit as of late with some of the magics I've been casting, so it might not necessarily be a bad idea to stock up on some supplies. And then just naturally, she kind of looks over the way. Is the fountain in question sort of nearby this market?
Yes.
Okay, so she looks over to the towards the fountain, and what is she seeing when she sees this fountain?
So I'm kind of picturing like the multi-tiered like bowls, and it comes over the edges and through like little grooves, and the water is just the color just ain't right. It's got
Hmm.
a little like it doesn't look horrible, but it's just not quite the it's got high turbidity. It's not very clear.
Mm. And are there like people sitting by it, children playing in it, or doing other kinds of things that we might imagine people in the past of like Victorian England or like, turn of the century New York City or some of these other big population kind of environments? Or is it not that kind of fountain?
I was thinking more like a wishing fountain. A few people like flicking some coins in there and making some wishes.
So Agape's attention is kind of turned to that fountain, maybe because she's matching the energy of Percy. And she'll just look like, oh, well, that looks odd. Shouldn't that water be better than that?
Yes, yes, it should.
Hmm. Maybe just without thinking, maybe sensing innately the Archfey presence here. She'll just kind of be like, I mean, I don't know, is there something that can be done to fix that?
Yeah, Percy kind of lowers her voice a little bit and kind of changes her tone, and she's like, "Do you really want to know how to fix it, or are you just making conversation?"
Does she speak that like Elvish or Sylvan or something like that, maybe?
Oh yeah, that's a good idea. Yeah, let's go, Sylvan.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, Agape's eyes perk up and she like looks at Percy as kind of like, who are you? Like, and so she'll kind of like respond back in Sylvan, almost surprised, and she'll be like, you know how to speak Sylvan? Like, not many people know how to.
Well, I got to make sure I can sell coupons to everybody with a little bit of a sly grin.
Okay. And so then she'll say, so then I'm to take it that you're not what you necessarily appear to be.
Oh, is anybody?
She nods affirmatively and she goes, and she'll switch back to common and she'll say, yeah, I mean, if there's something that can be done to fix this fountain, if it's important to you, then yeah, I'm happy to help.
Oh, okay. She'd say, yeah, the source from this water, it starts uphill quite a ways, and it kind of points in, the direction. Outside of town, quite a ways that way. And I think something is contaminating the waters from that area. But I haven't had a chance to go check it out myself.
Yeah, and maybe kind of like as a framing device, like in a movie or something like that. Some of these like rich mages or captains of industry kind of walk by and they toss like a copper or something in the fountain, kind of like in a way like showing their disdain and kind of chuckling to themselves about like, oh, how great and powerful we are. And so maybe even as Percy's finishing delivering that line, it's kind of like a look of sneering or disgust at them. And so Agape's noticing that and kind of like trying to piece some things together. And so then Agape will respond and say, okay, so find the source of the water. And then that's where I need to clean it up. And then the water here. And then she kind of gestures broadly to like the market and the rest of this part of town. And then everyone will benefit. Yes?
Absolutely.
Okay. And so then she'll finish out the scene just by leaning in a little closer to Percy. And then in Sylvan, maybe she recites the beginning of some kind of a common riddle in the Feywild. And she's just trying to see, maybe depending on how Percy answers, if it gives her an idea of like maybe who exactly she's dealing with. So, how would Percy respond given this Sylvan question riddle?
I don't think she would give the typical answer,
Hmm.
but I think she would give an answer that alludes that she knows the answer. She just doesn't want to say it.
Okay, she nods impressively and without much haste, she kind of gives like a little bow, a little salute. She says, okay, well, I guess she looks, gestures to the market. Well, I guess let me stock up on some supplies and looks like I'm doing some water work.
Well, I would sure appreciate your help, and I'll make it worth your time if you come back and see me when you're done.
Yes, ma'am. And scene. So there we go. What'd you think getting to be Percy Proserpina?
That was fun.
I know you said you've been waiting for the opportune moment to be a DM, but do you think that this would be a character that if you were running a game, you would want to deploy in a setting?
Yeah, I think so. I think she could be a real good recurring character.
Player characters, like if you out there listening in podcast land are looking for an idea of like who your Archfey is, it might not be a bad idea to make Percy or Proserpina your particular Archfey, and that this is their cause, that they care about wanting to steer this civilization in a particular way that's going to avoid the worser parts of decay and spreading further destruction across the land or something like that.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah. So, we're here in the final thoughts section of the show. So I always like to check in with everybody and just see how their time was on the show. And, was it worth the wait, the multi-year wait, I guess, to get back on the show?
Oh yeah, that was a lot of fun. And it's good talking to you too. It's been a while.
Yeah. Time flies and life happens. And, we got to do all we can to make sure we stay in touch, even if it means being on a podcast episode.
Right?
Yeah. All right. Well, of course, before we end the episode, I always like to leave the microphone, stage, soapbox platform to the guests. So if you want to be found online, where can we do that? If there's any passions or causes or anything of that nature that we need to be made aware of. I remember last time you were telling us to support our local zoos and animal foundations and the like. So has any of that changed, or is there something new that we need to be made aware of?
Honestly, that's still where my passions lie. Go support your local zoos and not local. All of them, because
Sure.
some of them, they're assurance colonies because some animals are, they're gone in the wild, and all that's left is the ones that are in zoos and such. And it's a neat way to see new critters. A couple months ago, we went to a zoo a little bit outside of town, and they had a binturong. And
Whoa.
I was like, oh, I've never seen one in real life. It blew me away.
Oh man, I'm gonna have to figure out how that's spelled so I can put it in the show notes.
Oh yeah, Bint. Okay, I don't know. I know that's the first part.
There we go.
Funny looking things. Bear cats.
Oh.
That's, when people say bear cat, that's what they're talking about. Usually.
Oh, okay. And, by going to the zoo, you might get inspired for a new animal companion or D&D monster that you might want to throw in your game as well.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, Mr. Nolan, thank you so much for your time, for being a returning guest on the show. Can't wait to have you back on yet again sometime in the future. Hopefully it won't be too many years, but we'll have you back on making even more NPCs.
Absolutely. It's going to be great.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Sidekicks and Side Quests. Be sure to subscribe to the podcast through Apple Podcast, Google Play, Spotify, Amazon Music, and Overcast, or feel free to save the RSS feed to use the app of your choice. If you don't like using podcast apps and services, I'm proud to announce that I'm in the process of uploading the podcast to our very own dedicated YouTube channel, which you can find by searching for Sidekicks and Side Quests. All future episodes should automatically publish to our YouTube channel. Visit our website, sidekicksandsidequests.com, for links, write-ups of the NPCs, and to learn more about the show and the guests who have been on it. To stay up to date and interact via social media, you can follow the podcast on Facebook, Instagram, and the corresponding threads, Twitter, now rebranded X, and Reddit by searching for SideKQ Podcast. You can now also find a very tiny community on Discord as well. I would love to talk D&D and showcase your fan art, stories of how you used our NPCs, discussions, and commentary. If you'd like to hail the bard, simply send me an email at sidekicksandsidequests@gmail.com. To help this show be the resource it's meant to be, I ask that you please leave a review on iTunes, 5 stars if you please, to help spread the word and share our podcast with your friends and family. Whether you're a veteran player or an aspiring dungeon master, there's something here for everyone, and I want to hear about it. As mentioned in the NPC creation section of the show, I do in fact have a Patreon for the podcast. If you love this podcast and you want to help support us and take our show to the next level, I would appreciate it if you would go to patreon.com/ patreon.com/sidekicks and sidequests. No matter your lifestyle expenses, we have wonderful rewards at every level of Patreon membership tier. Modest, comfortable, wealthy, and aristocratic accommodations await, and we welcome all patrons to the Levitating Platter. Seriously, your financial support allows for this passion project to continue to invest in itself through the tools that will take our production to the next level, as well as provide more content for our patrons and the community at large. Please consider supporting me on Patreon if you can.
Sidekicks and Side Quests is unofficial fan content permitted under the fan content policy, meaning I'm not approved or endorsed by Wizards. Portions of the materials used are property of Wizards of the Coast.
Copyright Wizards of the Coast, LLC.
Thank you for your support, and I'll see you at the pub next time.
Bar to rock on 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. Sidekicks and Sidequests.